Okay, so last class I was hoping I'll complete chapter 4, but looks like there are some interactions, which is okay. I think it's slightly slower than what I originally planned. But anyway, I think it's okay. So last class we saw the first two parts of chapter 4. Particularly we saw this freedom from work, joy of work, the 12 principles that we saw. Little bit we saw on this concept of yajna, which is very different from the concept of yajna in chapter 3. In chapter 3 it was introduced in a particular way, and in chapter 4 the concept of yajna is taken to a much higher plane. So we will see a little bit more of that today, and quickly try to conclude chapter 4 with this set of beautiful ideas on knowledge. Because this chapter is karma sannyasa, so jnana karma sannyasa, so it ends with some ideas on jnana. So we'll see that and then move on to chapter 5. Last class I was trying to project this picture of what an yajna generally comes to our mind. Moment we say yajna, I think we always think of a karta, a doer, or yajamana, right? And yajna always needs a medium, and the medium is Agni, in a very ritualistic sense when we understand yajna. And there is always an offering given. Different types of yajnas, we have to give different types of vastu as the offering. And it is always given to a certain god. So this is what generally yajna means, what normally people understand. As we always know, all these are symbolism. These are symbols to actually point to something. So if we end up our lifetime doing only putting ahuti on the pouring ghee, that means we are refusing to go from LKG to UKG. We want to be, it's like saying I will be in LKG all the time. I will not go to UKG. It's something like that. So anyway, the effect of yajna is, these are all very obvious. Everything becomes a bhasma. So everything is annihilated to nothing. Everything is destroyed to nothing. And the expression of that is the ashes. No matter whatever vastu you put in, finally all of them become ashes. So it essentially points to everything melting away to something which is now, people in a Purna Ahuti put a silk saree with coconut. Everything becomes bhasma at the end of the day. Everything becomes ashes finally. So they are all pointing to something. You have to remember that. Right? And it's all about giving away. That's why the mantra, when the Purohit says na mama, is the tag which is always added. Indra idan namama, Surya idan namama, Prajapati idan namama. The na mama is very, very important. Because the very idea of doing yajna is to develop this habit of a little bit of detachment in life. Detachment in many things that we do. So that is again, from these symbols we have to get all those ideas. So that's why the namama is always, if you closely watch, the Purohit will say namama with every mantra. So it is actually developing a sense of attachment over time. So while at one level it is a symbolism, at another level it conveys something. Now, the reason why I did this was that shloka brahmarpanam brahma havihi brahmagnau brahmana hutam brahmaiva tena gantavyam brahma karma samadhina. In that shloka, this picture is anyway there, because there is arpanam, there is ahuti, there is a destination, everything is there. Now why did Krishna plant that shloka? Because the next 6 shlokas basically uses this framework, but takes it from this ritual of only sitting in front of an altar and doing, and saying, please learn from this. Now you can do yajna in many different ways. This is a starter, and this is the one which reminds us as to what is expected of an yajna. So the next 5-6 shlokas he talks about 12 different types of yajnas. In the next 4-5 shlokas, 12 yajnas are being talked about. So few of them. So now the imagery that we should have is, whenever we do an yajna, we have to give something and give it to somebody and develop a sense of detachment and annihilate everything to nothing. This is the imagery. that we should have. So with that you have to understand all these shlokas, otherwise these shlokas will never make sense. Because we don't understand what is going on here. So it says, Shrotradin Indriyananye Samyamagnishu Juhvati Shabdadin Vishayananye Indriyagnishu Juhvati. That's two types of yajnas are here. Sarvan Indriya Karmani Prana Karmani Chapare Atma Samyama Yogagnau Juhvati Jnana Deepite. So now he says, if you understand this imagery of yajna, now I'll tell you how people do yajna. They don't need an altar. They don't need Agni and Ahuti and all that. Everything is... So the type of yajna he is talking about are which are happening inside, not outside. The yajna that so far we are seeing is outside. Where you put an altar, some Purohit, you call some Purohit, they utter some mantra and you have something in mind and so you want to do yajna, that's fine. But the higher plane of yajna is not that. You take that concept and use that concept and then do yajna inside. We have to do a lot of, we can constantly pour some ghee inside. So that is what he is talking here. So he says, Shrotradin, all these 5 organs. Adi means etal and plural. So Shrotradin, all these, that is the objects of hearing, objects of smelling. This is the only way by which we consume the outside world. No? So he says, all that, these are all the padarthas which you can put into a yajna. And what is the Agni? The Agni is called self-control. Samyama Agni. So developing this self-control is an yajna. It is an effort which we have to do, where what you offer, we offer all these sense organs does not mean, don't understand the physical meaning of it. What it says is, these objects which are all turned outside, now you can turn it inside and give it to this Agni called self-control. So it is taking to that level of trying to connect many things. Then he says, Shabdadin Vishayan. So this is the equipment through which this is what you get. These are called Indriyas, these are called Indriyartha. The raw material for the Indriya. The raw material for the Indriyas are, for the eye, the raw material is images. For the ear, the raw material is sound. For the skin, the raw material is sparsha. So they are so again it says etal, Shabda and all. Shabda comes through ear. Picture comes through the eye and so on. So just like he says, you can offer all these into which fire? This fire is called Indriyas. So what does this mean? He says, you don't take it too far. Whatever you get out of the objects, leave it at that level. Don't bring it in and mess up your life. Which is what we are doing. We take all these signals and bring it in and then start really processing it. He did not look at me, he didn't answer me properly, he actually told something differently about me. So much we do. He says don't do it. Do Ahuti there itself. Which means manage the outside world. That is the subtle meaning of this statement. Manage the outside world. That is an yajna that you have to do. So that's what he says here. Then he says Sarvan Indriya Karmani, Prana Karmani. So he says different people do different things. So all these activities which are done through the Indriyas, he says, apare, some people, what do? They offer it to an Agni called Prana, which means they are in deep meditation. The Prana here indicates, through meditation they actually take all of them and nullify the effect. Essentially we want Bhasma at the end of the day when you do an Yajna. So what is the Bhasma here? The Bhasma is the effect is nullified. See, our problem is the effect is bothering us. The world throws 100 things on us all the time. We start processing it all the time and then mess up our life. He says, no, put all of them into the Ahuti. And that Ahuti is, and the Prana Karmani means through meditation, through deep breath control and meditation, they bring a certain sense of self-control. And how did they get that? That Agni comes through what is called the Jnana Deepa. So where is this Agni lit? The Agni is lit through knowledge. And what is that knowledge? Knowledge is getting sense of what is Nitya and what is Anitya. What is it that I should worry about in life? What is it that I should not worry about in life? What is more permanent? We saw all of them a little bit in chapter 2. Very nicely we saw one big chunk. He said, Abhyaktani cha bhutani vyakta madhyani bharata. Jatasya dhruvo mrityu dhruvam mritya janma mritasya cha. Many things we saw. Do we develop the sense of discrimination? That sense of discrimination is the light of knowledge. And that light of knowledge is the Agni on which you do deep meditations. All these are related. So they are using the imagery to explain many things. Basically what they are saying is, don't look at yajna and stop there. It is actually pointing to you to something. It says, you have to, in everything that you do, there is an Agni, there is a Ahuti, there is a Vastu, and at the end of it, everything is annihilated to nothing. Bhasma. Get that spirit and then look at many things in life is what he is trying to get through some of these shlokas. Then he says, so finally it is a concluding, in a way it is a concluding shloka in this argument in yajna. So in chapter 3, I mentioned 5 types of yajna, if you remember. There the notion of yajna is a world of action in which you have to do yajna, give and take. That was the meaning of yajna, first meaning of yajna that came. That's why I talked about Swadhyaya yajna, Deva yajna, Pitri yajna, Manushya yajna and Bhuta yajna. 5 yajnas. It's all about how do you deal with the world. Are you not thankful to your parents? Are you not thankful to the nature which is coexisting with you and letting you live? That kind of issues. Here he talks about again 5 types of yajna, because here the yajna definition has moved to a much higher level. So he says, how do people do yajna? And here the yajna is a conceptual idea that you have to, distance yourself, offer everything to Agni and then not get tainted by the effects. Basmi Karaniyam. Everything must be annihilated to ashes. From that concept he says there are 5 types of yajnas. One is Dravya yajna, which is this outside, where you put an altar and then Homa Kunda and get an Yajamana and do it. That is called Dravya yajna. So he says that is the easiest way to start. But you have to learn from that. When you do it, you have to reflect on why are we doing it. In fact, every society and every religion has a lot of symbols. There's a lot of symbolism. The problem is when people stop with symbols, then it becomes a dry ritual. It becomes meaningless and it develops a very different. So every society, every religion, every group of people need symbols, symbolic things. So this is a symbolic beginning. Dravya yajna, then tapo yajna. This whole effort of self-control is a tapas. Developing that activity is an yajna. There you have to take the samyama agni, all those are part of it. The fire of self-control in which you offer all the worldly responses and then you say, I will stay away from it. It should not affect me anymore. I should make an effort all the time to do that. So that is tapo yajna. Yoga yajna, which is the Ashtanga yoga yajnas. Prana karmani, the previous sloka I showed it. The 8 steps through which you develop this self-control and rise to the much higher level. So that is yoga yajna. So Dravya yajna, tapo yajna, yoga yajna stata pare, swadhyaya yajna, jnana yajnascha. So in the first shloka I showed last class, in 25th shloka he talks about internal yajna and external yajna. So these are all internal. How do you reflect, self-reflect, do a lot of self-vichara, and through that you raise your... What is yajna then? Yajna is raising you to a much higher level by developing a certain control, by making sure the outside world cannot affect me. I can reach a stage where I will be able to handle, in the sense I will leave it at whatever level I have to leave it. So that is swadhyaya yajna and jnana yajnascha. Yatayaha samshita vrataha. Those who endure, who constantly make effort and become great people, they try all these 5 yajnas. So the 5 yajnas here are yajna at a much higher plane. The 5 yajnas which I pointed in chapter 3 is in a world of vyavahara, how do you live in a cardinal principle of give and take. There those 5 yajnas are there. The Bhuta yajna, Manushya yajna, Deva yajna, Pitri yajna and Swadhyaya yajna. Right? There Swadhyaya means reading of scriptures and passing down the generation. Here Swadhyaya means Swadhyaya, self-teaching, self-reflection, improving your own understanding by a lot of self-reflection. That is the meaning of Swadhyaya here. That is, you give a dravya, you have a homa and then you offer ghee, you offer, for different yajnas they have different padarthas to be offered. If you do a Sri Sukta Homa, you have to put lotus. That's one important padartha in Sri Sukta. If you do a Ganapati Homa, they put a modaka. So dravyas, they are all, right? Material things which you offer.
How does it relate to the actual, like, Swadhyaya, you said this self-introspection?
I think I discussed it in some detail last class. We'll talk about it outside. We will lose otherwise time. Yeah? Maybe today I also started with that. Maybe slightly late. So we will not repeat it. Yeah?
So how can you get knowledge as an offering? Knowledge as an offering and not being able to.
Well, Jnana Yajna, basically all these are very complex constructs. When you say Jnana Yajna, it is actually the Agni is Jnana Agni. So in that Jnana Agni, you offer all, we'll see the next 12 slokas are there. How Sarva Karma Kilam Partha Jnane Parisamapyada. He says everything will be burnt to ashes. All your effects will be burnt only when you spark with knowledge. So it's that meaning. It's a little deeper construct actually. We'll see the next 12 slokas and Jnana might possibly. So he says Shreyat Dravyamaya Yajnat Jnana Yajnaha Parantapaha. So then he makes this bridge. He says, I told you 5 types of yajnas, but I will tell you of all the yajnas, it is the Jnana Yajna which is the really superior, is what he is getting at. He says, Shreyan Dravyamaya Yajnat Jnana Yajnaha Parantapaha. Why? He makes the first. Again, these are all axiomatic statements. In fact, the rest of the shlokas you can read and you can make understanding in our day-to-day life, and the same shlokas you can make understanding for your self-development, spirituality, character building. At 2 planes you can argue. For example, there is an important point he is making. What is he saying here? Sarvam karma kilam partha jnane parisamapyate. This is a cardinal principle. Every work must lead to knowledge. In modern parlance, this is called tacit knowledge. Not explicit knowledge. It's called tacit knowledge. If you keep doing something, you develop some grey matter. The knowledge is the result of your doing. That is what he is saying here. That is the Vyavahara meaning. Spiritual meaning is when you got that knowledge, the whole work and its effect will just go away. That is the meaning. So all of them will end there. That is the meaning there. So he says, Sarvam karma kilam partha jnane parisama. It's an important principle. We can't be working for years and not got any knowledge. In a Vyavahara I am talking, in a low level thing I am talking. You can't say I have been working for 2 years but I have no clue of, I have not got any expertise. We can't say it. So all work must lead to knowledge. In fact, that is a way to judge the work. If I work for 6 months, have I got something superior? There are people working for years but they have not learned. Because they can, but they are not oriented like that. So he says, Sarvam karma kilam partha jnane parisamapyate. So Krishna is saying, all work will lead to knowledge. Therefore knowledge is superior because the destination is finally knowledge. Work is only a via media. See, today we are so much worried about work and work related things. The real destination is not work. The real destination is superior knowledge. Nothing flowers a personality than knowledge. That's why people love education, whatever you say. On one hand, people will say, it is applicable, not applicable, but every Vyaktitva gets flowered only with knowledge. Even this education, all education, knowledge by its own very nature will flower the personality. Why? Because all work must lead to knowledge finally. It's a very critical idea. That's why he says Jnana Yajna is very important. Anyway, of course he has a lot of arguments to say why knowledge and knowledge is very important. Then he says, how do you get this knowledge? He says, Tadviddi pranipatena pariprasnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnanina tattvadarshinaha. In fact, the very idea of how do you acquire knowledge as laid out not just in Bhagavad Gita, actually you can see Mundakopanishad, you can see Prashnopanishad, Samhitapaneyaha. This word will be there. How do you actually approach, how do you get knowledge? There is a different paradigm. which our ancestors were actually proposing. So here there are three words here. He says, how do you get knowledge? He says there are three conditions required to get knowledge. First condition is pranipatena. If the head is at 130 degree, that person will never get knowledge. Even this worldly knowledge I am talking, I am not even talking spiritual. I have seen people like that. Their head is 130 degree. Right? It won't work. Pranipatena. Humility is extremely important. I don't know how many of you have noticed in this campus, the first entry into the building, right? What you will find is the ceiling will be 6 times your height. Minimum. You come from the amphitheater, that will be about 6 times your height. Come into the main foyer. I have seen it in IAC, I have seen it in IIT Kharagpur, I have seen IIT Madras, BSB, ESB, MSB, there are only 5 buildings. All of them will have the same structure. Once you go in, you will find that the ceiling is about 5 times, 6 times, 10 times. That's why the tower, when you get into a temple, when you pass through the tower, you first have to become very humble. Without humility, knowledge does not go in. These institutions, good institutions always do that. There is a towering structure, one structure which is a main structure, you will find a massive ceiling. Because humility is very important, otherwise knowledge will never get in. It's not about how good your cauliflower is. It's not about how sharp your brain is. It's a certain attitude actually. So, pranipatena indicates humility. Without humility, no knowledge. In fact, this is becoming a big issue actually. So, the knowledge will be very superficial.
Sir, in a world where there is so much importance given to competence than character, so knowledge brings with it competence also. So does it mean that people do not have, those who do not have much knowledge, they do not have character?
Actually, I'll slightly change it. I think while knowledge is very important, I think attitude more than compensates for knowledge. In fact, I have been reading even that Arvind Aikar case, Harvard Business School case, it says Mahatma Gandhi was not too brilliant. It gave a few examples. He said these all great people who made a difference are not extraordinarily brilliant.
Then why knowledge is so superior?
No. So the knowledge that you are talking about is this kind of a knowledge where you can actually those people were very successful only because of knowledge, not because they had degrees. So if you think knowledge has to be measured by degree, that's a very inefficient way. The proof of the pudding is in eating. So great people who have delivered at the end of the day have knowledge. Knowledge not measured, sometimes measured, sometimes not measured. So if you use that framework, it will not work. If you use the framework of making a difference, it may be a very different thing.
So what is the specification of this knowledge? Like whether it is materialistic knowledge or knowledge about divinity? Or
No, in my opinion, it is true for every knowledge. In fact, all these shlokas you can argue for both materialistic knowledge as well as spiritualistic knowledge. I don't see any difference. Although the much bigger issue here is the spiritualistic knowledge, but I think all these will apply. People with arrogance will never be. I don't want to name. One of my classmates is the 6th ranker in JEE. He was my classmate at IIT Madras. He is nowhere now. So much for that knowledge, because some of these are missing in him. I can vouch for it. So these ideas are very generic. It is in the long run, where are you? In fact, that's why you find there are very bright people. They don't go too far in life. Why? Because these are missing. So knowledge is not getting degree or getting the first job or anything. Knowledge is being successful at the end of the day. Not feeling sorry about what you have done when you are 50 or 60. That person is wise. I mean that true wisdom is knowledge. Not degrees. These are all via media for that. So I would think this will apply in all situations. We will have to reflect on it a little more deeply.
I think Kashi answered that. Their knowledge is, can it be used as wisdom? Synonymous with wisdom?
Knowledge, if somebody says I have acquired knowledge, it is not by showing papers, it is by my vyavahara.
And you said that by doing we acquire knowledge. It is not necessary that we read, study or go through formal education. It is meant that by doing, somebody who is a plain worker, an artisan, can be more knowledgeable.
Yeah. So wisdom, you can use the word wisdom.
So we can use the word wisdom here.
You can. Yeah. Synonymously we can use.
No, because
So,
Gyan, I have always wondered, Gyan is knowledge or wisdom?
no. So, knowledge, in this whole discussion, knowledge is not, see, Jnana, although we are using Jnana here very contextually we have to use. Again, I will tell this again and again. Why did Krishna not use Vijnana? If you use Vijnana, these Anushtup Chandas will go. 8 letters will become 9 letters. See, when you write a poetic note, you are phenomenal constraint on the word. That's why interpretation is very important. Here the Jnana is actually Vijnana or Samjnana or Prajnana. There are different upasargas are there. In other words, whenever we say Jnana here, it is not knowledge which comes by a degree or I have learned something, I have committed to memory. That's not knowledge. Does it make a difference to how do you approach life? If you had made a difference, that part is knowledge. The other parties are all parking in your brain. So, wisdom, realized knowledge. So, we have to use all those meaning here because although you use the word jnana only throughout here. Yeah?
So knowledge is something that probably can influence greatly one's acting on free will. So that free will, which you said in the last class. So people probably act based on
Very simply, knowledge must make you a viveki. I have to use only a Sanskrit word. Other words, English and all, if I bring it will be a little difficult for me.
Dayananda Saraswati says, shedding ignorance is knowledge. That means the knowledge always exists. You are only shedding your ignorance.
And it brightens up.
You shed it out, it different.
So you become more a vivek. You have more viveka about many things in life. It's a very at that level you have to understand jnana.
Sir, but if somebody is arrogant, they probably cannot gain knowledge. So, as much.
No, but they will gain a lot of knowledge which will not, see, there are two parts to knowledge. That's what I was trying to say. There are two parts to knowledge. Knowledge is not what I know. So, people who are very arrogant and very brilliant would know a lot of things. But does that make a difference to them in terms of how they actually understood some of the things, how they deal with it? May not be. So, it is all knowledge part. These are all available.
But there is a contradiction here, because somebody is arrogant by birth. That guna is coming by birth. So, and it will influence their free will. So, without gaining knowledge, they are never going to change their actions, which they are doing with free will. So, they can never evolve to.
No, I think the way it will, even if hypothetically there is somebody like that, there may be quite a few like that. It is experience which will teach them. It will take a few hundred janmas or a few janmas or 50 janmas, we do not know. The free will is the biggest thing which will, slowly change. Anyway, we will see it a little bit as we go along. So, pranipatena is one, pariprashnena. But this is very characteristic about true knowledge seeker. A true knowledge seeker is one who is very inquisitive. Inquisitive in the sense there is this urge to know that ultimate. That's why in Mundaka Upanishad it says, Shaunaka Mahashalaha Angira Sampapracha Kasmin Vijnate Sarvamitam Vijnatam Bhavati. This similar statement I have seen in many places. He says, I always want to know, by knowing it I will be known of everything. That urge, that serious urge to know that ultimate truth, that urge is very, very important because knowledge is a very relative idea until finally the ignorance is shed and the whole thing, Adhyatma, that's what Krishna says in some other chapter, we will see it. It's all shrouded. The peeling of the layer has to happen. And once all the layers are peeled, it is complete silence. There is no more questioning. There is no more need to question. The more we are questioning, we are still in the journey. Right? So this pariprashna is very important. In other words, if you read ancient Indian wisdom, there is phenomenal questioning. Questioning in the spirit of inquiry. Not questioning because I can question you and then probably put you in place, or I want to demonstrate I know something. It's not from that perspective. It's a genuine desire to, understand that ultimate which is eluding me all the time. That kind of a burning desire.
So I think the operative one is that inquiry of the ultimate is the path to.
Everything is relative. So the ultimate is like zero defects. The spirit of inquiry is the important raw material. When you reach ultimate is actually a much later question.
Do we need to be conscious of that?
No. My understanding is in quality literature, moment they put zero defects on the board, their life was settled. Otherwise, they had a problem. So they now focused on how to go there. I mean, there is no. They know that there is a target. Don't worry too much. How do you mean? You keep doing. You keep moving. The moving target is a very interesting thing in quality literature. Improvement is all about moving target rather than. So in the same way, I think it is that ultimate urge. No, the ultimate knowledge is a very, very important. Then the path, the movement will happen. Depending upon whatever bags we brought, it will carry forward. Arjuna has how many questions in Bhagavad Gita? He was not just keeping quiet. He was not just listening. He was just not, this thinking that, you should not ask questions, you have to keep quiet. Are all very recent things. Pariprashna is a very, very important requirement of really, getting that knowledge. And sevaya. And there are different meanings to this sevaya. But the most important implication of this statement, people will transfer superior knowledge when if you have to use a modern word, you have to create a chemistry with them first. If you don't create a chemistry, you don't get superior knowledge. So, they called us Gurukula, now they called us understudy. Great people, you have to do understudy. You have to create that chemistry. How do you create chemistry? Seva is a great thing. They feel very, very much for you. If that gate doesn't open, if that last straw doesn't open, true knowledge will never flow. I mean, I will teach something, you learn something, in our scheme I'll give a grade and I will go, and all that will happen in a modern system. True knowledge, very intense knowledge, if you have to develop a very close kind of a relationship. The seva indicates that. And also there are many reasons. Seva will, because people have too much ego knowledge, too much knowledge does not get in also. True knowledge will not really flourish if you have ego. That's why if you go to ashramas, in fact in Sabarmati ashrama, the great people will go and do toilet, clean the toilet for months. Because that seva will cut their ego. Ego, how do you remove ego? You have to throw yourself in a situation where your ego is challenged. There is no other way. You can't endlessly keep talking, ego has to be removed, ego has to be removed. You can give 100 hours of lecture. In ashramas, that's why they actually make you do seva. Seva is very important. The ego, if the ego doesn't get cut to size, knowledge will never develop. Spiritual growth will be stunted. Ego is the biggest villain for spiritual growth, and the only way. So the knowledge that ego is a villain for spiritual growth is of no use. I mean, that's a very explicit knowledge. It has to operate on me. Therefore, my ego, I have to start finding out what do I do. Because this will help. Seva is a very important component even from that perspective. So, superior knowledge, if we need, there are three things. It's a deep spirit of inquiry. There is a sense of humility, and there is a great effort to keep ego at bay. If you can't keep ego at bay, knowledge will never flourish. I mean, this is true of not just spiritual knowledge. You can just apply it to a day-to-day life also. People who are too egoistic will go only that far. They can't go too far. It will come in the way. It's very much true. So that is what he's saying. He's saying if you bring these three raw material, then jnaninaha tattvadarshinaha, those who have seen that tat padartha, they will transfer that knowledge to you. That ultimate knowledge, in between there are intermediate knowledges, all those are fine. That ultimate truth of how do I liberate myself from the clutches of 100 things that we are going on. So that is what he says, that three conditions. There are a lot of descriptions of that.
And all these Pandavas and Kauravas, all those Navara characters, what kind of service orientation was there in Arjuna so that this entire knowledge was transmitted by Lord to him?
No, in the traditional scheme of education, the first 15 years is nothing but seva only. Without seva, you would have learned nothing from Drona. Without, pranipata and pariprashna, you would have got nothing. That was the scheme of things. All these are built into that Gurukul system. It's all about seva. Knowledge are all much later.
What kind of seva?
Detail I may not know.
Arjuna and Krishna, is there any service orientation?
Well, I don't know whether we can take it straight away and map it onto Arjuna and Krishna in this context, and but I am sure we have to get the larger understanding of it. I may not be able to tell you that exactly.
Where is
Faith also is coming. Very, very important.
Just to respond to that it's saying that seva will open you up to knowledge, but not saying that's the only path. So maybe between Arjuna and Krishna there was so much bhakti and that opened the gates. There could be other.
Then it says, what is this ultimate knowledge can do for you? So there are lots of things he talks about. He says, Yat jnatva na punarmoham evam yasyasi pandava yena bhutani aseshena drakshyasi atman yatho mayi api chedasi papebhyah sarvebhyah papakrittamah sarvam jnana plaveneva vrijinam samtarishyasi. This is another beautiful statement. We have to reflect, just like sarvam karma kilam partam jnane parisamapyati. That's a very important statement to understand. We have to actually think about it. This is a great statement. He says the only way you can cross, right, in a spiritual sense, I am using the word, papam, vrijinam is sin and all that. You don't have to understand it. Even in a vyavahara, the only way you can cross all your constraints in life is to acquire knowledge on that. That is the point he is making. Knowledge is so important. He says, Sarvam Jnana Plava. The Plava is a boat. Plava is a boat. So, knowledge is the only boat with which you can cross a hurdle of problems. Like if there is a water body which is the equivalent of a hurdle of problems, how do you cross it? Without knowledge, it is not possible. So, how do you liberate yourself? In a spiritual sense also it applies. How do you liberate yourself? You have to get that ultimate knowledge of who am I and what is this connection between Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara. Lots of our day-to-day things will all fall in place. Now it is not falling in place. We are actually solving a jigsaw puzzle. We still have not got the picture. Here and there we have got a few portions and we are attaching it. We are still not seeing that wow has not come to us. So the jnana that it is talking about is this jigsaw puzzle is solved now. That kind of a situation. He says once you get it, you will cross a lot of limitations. Everything in life will make a different sense. That viveka will come. Nitya anitya vastu vichara will come. All that will come. So that is what he is saying here. So he says having known that is the reference frame. There is nothing else you will worry about, which means all these raga, dvesha, lobha, mada, masarya, they will start bothering you. We actually want to know what should I do so that this will not affect me. We keep on talking only about this. We are not asking what should I do in such a way all these will move away from me. He says that is that ultimate knowledge. That ultimate knowledge that you get will take you from all this. Right? That's what he is saying. So, aseshena, bhutani aseshena, you will be able to see the oneness everywhere. You will make meaning. The jigsaw puzzle is now solved. You are now seeing different pieces which are all appearing different. Once you put all of them together, you will see that one picture out of it. Bhutani aseshena drakshyasi atmaha yatomaya, including me also. So what he says is Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara will all get connected. So one indicator of have you got that ultimate knowledge, the only way to say is, did you connect Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara and found one common thread between the three? Until we haven't got it, this knowledge has not come. There are some range of intermediate knowledges that would have come. So he is only putting a reference to what this knowledge actually will take you to. That's what he is saying here. And he says, whatever difficulties, papas, sins, limitations that you have been going through, the only way you can cross all these limitations to go to the other side is to need a boat called knowledge. So this sarvam jnana plaveneva vijirinam samtarishyasi is a word, is a sentence which you have to reflect on. We have to make our own meaning of it. They are very important statements about knowledge, which will be applicable in day-to-day life. It will be applicable in our individual growth, in our spiritual journey, in our self-development. Everywhere this statement will make sense. We have to ask, so what is that knowledge? The meaning of knowledge, the context will keep on changing, but the axiom will not change. It's an axiomatic statement. He says, Jnana plaveneva. Only with the boat of knowledge you will be able to cross limitations in life. Spiritual life means something. Your Professional life means something, but it is all pointing to that. So that is the second axiom he makes. First axiom he made was Sarvam karma kilam partha jnane parisamapeti. It's very important to understand that principle.
When you're talking about liberation, is it liberation from sin or liberation in such a way that you get eternal life or salvation? What kind of liberation and then ultimately?
Yeah, so immediately chapter 5 we'll quickly in very nice detail we'll see it. So I'll just defer it up to that. What exactly that liberation is, we'll see it immediately in chapter 5. Yeah?
I read a story. It is actually written in which there are two stages. And the one stage has been practicing whatever he has learned from Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads. He says, yet the truth eludes him. He has been practicing meditation, he has been practicing all the sadhanas, kriyas for 15 to 20 years. And he is now at a very old age, and then truth eludes him. And then another realized soul, in the form of a sage, comes and meets him and says, your mind is clouded with knowledge. You have to just go into emptiness, empty your mind, let your mind not be there. All this knowledge which you have acquired are in fact hindering you from self-realization. You go into nothingness and emptiness, you will be able to see the supreme truth. And then that is how this soul is guided to see the realized truth. Now here we are saying knowledge is inevitable to attaining liberation. And this seems to be somewhat in contrast.
No, not at all. You take an eraser, you keep on erasing, one day eraser will go. Is it not? You use an eraser, keep on erasing, right? The eraser will go. So knowledge, all these are, so it is not a process, I got 10%, 20%, 30%, it's not like that. You got it. This is a process. Once you go through the process, the mind will go, the knowledge will go. You know, in chapter 2, Krishna said in 46th shloka, just before this Karmanyeva Adhikara, there is one shloka. There he says, for a realized person, all these Bhagavad Gita, Vedic knowledge and all those are like, well of water when the whole city is flooded with water. There is a statement, there is a shloka like that. So point is, these are all important for those who are yet not gone there. For those who are gone there, these are not, everything is gone. Mind will go. That's what he was telling the other person. See, one person went to Ramana Maharishi, very well known person, by name Devaraja Mudri. He was a big man in Chennai. So he said, I have been seeing Bhagavad Gita for so many years. I have been seeing Bhagavad Gita, nothing is happening. So Ramana Maharishi was just keeping quiet for 2 days. Third day he made as usual one cryptic statement. He said, Bhagavad Gita said, look at you and you keep looking at Bhagavad Gita. There is a deeper meaning. He says, reflect. So that is the difference. So those kinds of things you will.
So now it makes sense how you can get knowledge of doctrine. My first question. Exactly what both of you discussed. So the knowledge itself you offer.
Then he says, Yataidamsi samiddagni basmasat kurute Arjuna, Jnanagni sarva karmani basmasat kurute tata. Just like a bunch of firewood. If you just put the bunch of firewood in a fire, they all will be consumed. In fact, the word for fire in Sanskrit is anala. Alam means enough. In Sanskrit, alam means enough. Analam means not enough. When the fire actually rages, when the fire is big, very difficult to stop. Actually, you can throw anything into it, it will consume. That's why it's called anala. It can consume anything. Analam, it's not enough. So you need a Herculean effort to actually stop it. Actually, that's why all these. So he says, just like a bunch of firewoods are just burnt. When there is a fire, you throw it, all of them will be burnt. That is exactly what the Jnana Agni will do. This fire of knowledge, which is all dormant, which is all, like a 5 watts bulb or something. It is actually a mega fire which is sitting in us. but these are all clouded, covered and so on. So it's all smoking very feebly. He says it opens up, you unpeel all of them, it opens up, all your work and the effects of the work will all be burnt. See, we are all worried about the effects of work. We are not actually worried about what? Bhagavad Gita says, please do work. Chapter 5, this is the first thing he will start. It's not about doing work, it is about the effect of work. What do we do about the effect of work? Which is what is bothering you. Work is not bothering us. The effect of work is bothering us. That all will be burnt. That is a true knowledge. Knowledge, in the next chapter 5, we'll see the first 10 slokas there. This will come so well. Can it not stop bothering you? He is a true, so-called, sannyasi or soul or whatever. Is somebody who can handle things. That is the real salvation. It is nothing else. We will see that as he talks about. So, Jnanagnihi sarva karmani basmasat kurute. This is another statement which you have to reflect. He says, if true knowledge, sparks in your mind, lots of things, it already has gone as ahuti into the Agni. That is the Jnana Yajna. It has gone into the Agni. Everything will become Basma. Basma means work will stop bothering you. Raga Dvesha will stop bothering you. You will actually revel in work and keep going. That is the theme which Bhagavad Gita is hitting again and again. Please work, but don't get affected by the work. And you do a lot of other practices so that this can go on without affecting you. That's what he says here. Then there is another great statement. He says, Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate. He says there's nothing more purer than knowledge at all here. So he has put it to such a high pedestal. Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate. This is the IAS Academy logo. Dehradun IAS Academy says Nahi jnanena sadrisham.
University also.
Mysore University also, correct. Nahi jnanena sadrisham. That is their nothing like knowledge. He says knowledge, if you get that ultimate, depending on knowledge, again as I told you, this can be operated at different gradation, it will make sense to all of them. Moment you got the knowledge, that's the purest. That has taken a lot of limitation out of you. Whether it is doing a job, whether it is handling something, whether it is self-development, whether it is spiritual growth or liberation, at whatever level you can apply this idea. The concept can never go wrong. So he says, Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate. Tat swayam yoga samsiddha kalena atmani vindati. So, you are perfect, your yoga. So he says, do approach work in a particular way. If you approach work in a particular way, this knowledge will slowly develop in you. Which means you slowly unpeel a lot of limitations of your life. This flame which is all, camouflage will blow up one day. Which is what he is actually saying. Approach work in a particular way. It looks like he gives a very simple prescription. Although, one has to take it very carefully and so on. He says, through yoga you can reach that perfection. Handle people around you, handle yourself, handle world around you. You are almost a liberalized soul. All that, sages, sannyasi, everything can happen to you. Which is what he is going to say. Because Arjuna again in chapter 5 says, let me run away. He comes back to the same question again, which we will see. Then there is another important raw material which he talks about is Shraddha. So he says, in fact Krishna talked about it from two directions. First he said Shraddhavan labate jnanam. Then he said Ashraddha ajnanascha samshayatma vinashiti. He said both also. So first he said Shraddhavan labate jnanam tatparas samyate indriyaha jnanam labdva para shantim achirena adhigacchati. So he says bring Shraddha. Without Shraddha no knowledge. This is much important. Without Shraddha, you will never get knowledge, is what he said. Once you get knowledge, you will be able to handle yourself much better. Once you are able to control with that knowledge, you will get param shanti. Achirena, without much delay. That's why it is not an analog variable, it is actually digital. You are in zero and keep on doing, you become one. That's the end of it. All these efforts are in between. So these efforts are all process, but when it happens, it happens. That's why achirena adhigacchati. The param shantim achirena adhigacchati. Gacchati is what he says. So the point he says is Shraddhavan labate jnanam. Then the next sloka, he wanted to make it absolutely sure. He said, Ajñascha, person who doesn't have knowledge, Ashraddha Danascha, not willing to commit Shraddha. And he says they are all doubting Thomases. Samshayatma. He says that such people will be. In fact, I am very concerned. This modern living has phenomenal amount of doubting. We have actually taken a lot of Shraddha out of our equation. That's why life is challenged. You bring Shraddha, life is a lot more easier to handle. Somehow, I don't know why we have gotten into it. We have taken Shraddha out of many things. Shraddha gives you a lot of personal courage and strength. Lot of personal courage and strength you will get if you bring Shraddha. Somehow we think I have to handle everything. The day you say I have to handle everything, you are actually invited a lot of trouble. Moment you have Shraddha on people, Shraddha on Almighty, Shraddha on certain things, and say I will take what comes, that's also a part of Shraddha. I will take what comes is a great amount of faith that you have to build. If that is not there, life will be hugely challenged, which is what we are going through. So he says, Ajñascha ashraddha danascha samshayatma vinashyati. He says he perishes. Perishes means he doesn't die. Means this journey he will not reach his destination. This journey of self-development, this Vyaktitva must flower. This personality must flower to its perfection. That process will be gone. That will be stunted. That can be a retrograde also. That's what this vinashyati means. He says, Na ayam loke asti, not only in this world, so you are not going to be very successful in this world. Na paraha, not in the other world. If you believe in the other world, even there you will not. Right? Na sukham samshayatmanaha. Doubting people cannot have peace of mind. This is again an axiom. Please think about this. And doubt is a great expression of not having faith. And this fear of I will lose, all these are coming because the I part is playing all that. The moment you take a lot of I, you are actually, having less Shraddha. The moment you are able to play down a little bit of I, that means you are replacing it with Shraddha. That is actually the meaning of that. So he talks about Shraddha. One he says you will get knowledge, other says you will get perished.
Last couple of slides back we talked about humility and seva. So isn't it Shraddha the same thing or how?
They are all related to one another, one will beget the other. This is a very important attitude. They are all, so there are 3-4 of these conditions. Pranipata, Pariprashna, Seva and Shraddha. These are the 4 important things for knowledge to really flourish in anybody's mind. Whatever be the knowledge. It applies even for our day-to-day thing also. If we don't have Shraddha, nothing is going to really work. So the Shraddha,
it is said that doubts are necessary for knowledge to progress and to flourish. Doubting self.
No.
And
I will not use the word doubt. That is called the Pariprashna. That is called Pariprashna. Spirit of inquiry is different from doubt.
So doubting self is just the word for faithless people.
No, essentially, the point he is making here is you doubt and Shraddha are 2 sides of the same coin. If you look at this side, you will not get the other one. That is the spirit he is getting into. We may use the doubt. Again, doubt, samshaya and doubt, in a limited sense, what you say is true. In that span of that word usage. The context here is, Shraddha will say that I don't have to put everything onto my head. That is the spirit of Shraddha. Moment you say I have to handle everything myself, that means you have lack of Shraddha. So all that Krishna is saying is, if you put everything onto your head, life is very challenging for you. It's not going to be that easy. You have to really can't play close to your chest, and that may be because of a sense of attachment. They are all related. It may be because of a sense of attachment, no belief in God and no belief in this life. So many things can add to it. So here the idea is that in that perspective.
Is there any way of inculcating Shraddha in another person? Because some of us are just blessed with Shraddha, and so because you believe it, you see it, and you see that there are other people who are like completely, I will not believe it till I see it, and it seems like there's no way to bridge that. There's no way to transfer Shraddha. How do you...
See, my own understanding, it's a very important question. I have also thought about it quite a bit. My own understanding is many of these things, right, has to come, will only come from within. So it is only anubhava. I mean, all these will be useful. All these will be useful. Nothing teaches an individual more than swanubhava. Greatest teacher for every one of us, right from the child to the person who is 90 years old, nothing teaches better than anubhava. So Shraddha, whether you will get, it's a function of the anubhava. It will slowly. All these, some of the attributes are all very personal attributes. We call it as vasana, free will, all those all come through that anubhava. So it is only that experience which will slowly morph us. That's why it's a slow process. I mean, these things can help, but they cannot change. It can at best be some additional inputs into it. These are all vyaktitva. All these are very much planted on that karana sarira, which is not a physical form. It is in that soul. Yeah.
What is that state of supreme bliss?
State of?
Supreme bliss. He or she experiences supreme bliss. What is that?
Yeah, so at one level, it's all about saying that I feel very free. And when do you feel very free? Work doesn't bother you. I can't bother you. You will not bother others. What is freedom? Freedom is this can, last class I talked about nirashraya. There are 12 things which I talked about. If somebody gets all the 12, he or she is free. So to me, supreme bliss is absolute state of freedom. Freedom is not what I will like to do, whatever I will do, and it can affect anything. That is not freedom. Freedom is this whole world, the entities, people, your mind, your indriyas, your moods, nothing can limit you. They can. We are not able to understand and imagine that situation which is discussed in great detail. A situation where we are able to separate ourselves a little bit from that is the true state of freedom, that is supreme bliss.
So just one question, a personal question. You having known all this, have you attained that state?
I haven't attained at all. And as I told you, all these we have to keep on trying. We will see your own changes. So if you ask me what I was 10 years back and now, I think there is a little change which I have seen. So it's a very slow process. I am least bothered about these targets. I am least bothered about reaching it in 50 years or 20 years. I am more bothered about the highway. I want to know that I want to get onto the right highway. I am not bothered about the speed. I am not bothered about whether I will reach it in, all those. In fact, they are very, very important for spiritual and personality growth. First thing is throw all the targets out. Throw your rational thinking out. There are a few things you have to throw out. Targets you have to throw. Rational thinking you have to throw. You have to be very intuitive, not rational. So like that there is a list. So if you ask me, I have become lot intuitive than rational. That has happened to me a little bit. Something like that. No, it's true. That's how it is.
Is faith about backing your intuition?
Huh?
Is faith about backing your intuition?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. It's much deeper than that.
Because that supreme bliss that we talking about, when you have that ultimate knowledge, what is that ultimate knowledge? Then you could map that zigzag puzzle of the relationship among Jiva, Jagat and Vishnu.
Correct.
So, if somebody had identified that, which means they have got ultimate knowledge, which means they have got supreme bliss,
Yes.
as per the sloka.
Yes.
So, which means that, after having read all these, you're still in the process of understanding the
Yeah, it doesn't. No, I can give you another easy. No, that's all right. I'll give you an easy example. I want to cook because this is much easier to relate. I want to cook. I'm a Tamilian, and I'm a Tamil Brahmin. So our Bible is there is a old lady wrote 3 volumes called in English. They have now translated in several languages. It's called Cook and See. She said cook and see. She never said cook and eat. Really. It's a Bible of cooking for Tamil Brahmin families. It's called Samaithu Par. The point is, suppose I take that book and read how to make upma. I now read, thoroughly a few times. Correct?
And discuss also.
You do whatever you want to do. Finally, you try upma. It is all you have to pour it in a tumbler, or you can't even eat it. Let's say let all these go on. Let's say after 3 months of trying, finally I figured out how to make good food. Now, this Vyakti will, outside you will not see anything. Inside there is a huge difference which has happened which you don't know. So I am a great cook. That does not mean I have to keep the spatula in my hand all the time. So Jnani will never put a sticker and say I have now realized soul. But what you will see, so why I am saying this is, what you will see is that the way they deal with many things in life is worth watching. You see the effect of it. Nobody says you don't have to necessarily hold a spatula with you to say I am a great cook or anything. So the process that you go through and what you have realized is a very internal thing, but it can show in terms of the vyavahara that you are in. It's very, very indirect. So a realized soul, you can spot a realized soul. You will spot a realized soul. You will see there is a difference in approaching a particular issue, dealing with that kind of a thing. So it's like that. It's very internal. And it's a process that you go through. After that, it transforms you. You don't know. That's why a person who is in samadhi and the person who is in deep sleep, you cannot make out. Because they are all not things which are outside. There is not a meter which says now he is in samadhi. Or there is another meter which pops out. He knows. He is consciously very different. Peace, which you don't know. But what you may know is some of the way he or she does things, you say this is a different material. So it's very indirect. It's all personal, Atma Anubhava, Anubhuti.
So you're saying the hardware is same, software is upgraded.
No, the software is not upgraded. The hardware and software are thrown and it becomes completely free. You don't neither need a hardware nor the software. Because the moment you bring a hardware or a software, you are now in a limitation, frame. Anyway, so Shraddha. So actually, what is Shraddha? Shraddha at its fundamentally what it means is Astikya Bhava. Believe that there is something great there. You may call it different names, different religions, in fact, you can have any ways to articulate. But this basic belief, there is something. That's why we call Astikas. Nastikas, Nasti iti vadanti. Astikas, Asti iti vadanti. Believe that there is a larger principle. If you have a very strong belief in it, then you will not put many things on your head. That's where the whole thing will start. We may have conceptually, we may believe. If you conceptually believe in God, when you have a problem, you will never go to God. You say, no, I will pray to God, but I have to solve the problem. That means it is only conceptual. It's not deep. It is only skin deep. So, Astikya is Shraddha. Right? That belief is a great leveler. It's a great leveler. I will tell you one of my personal story. One of my nephew studied in RV College of Engineering. Because I had to give these examples, otherwise these ideas I cannot get. He was studying, I was the caretaker, right? And one day I went to Chennai. I had a 7:30 flight. For some reason I preponed it to 5:30 flight and came. I come home. This fellow met with a massive accident. He was sandwiched between, that time the Mysore road they were laying 4-lane. So someday they will close this road. He was about 100 meters from the college gate. He played tennis. He is a very good tennis player. There is one sports authority, something is there near Bangalore University. He plays and he came. So he was sandwiched between a lorry. The lorry was going very slow, so he just overtook it. But then there is a KSRTC bus in full speed coming. There is a center concrete median. Here is a lorry, here is a KSRTC bus. Two of them are in a bike. Hit, just thrown. And that happened at 5:30 or 5:45. I came 2 hours early. I come home and then my wife, they had called. I was the guardian actually, so they had the number. They called, my wife had gone. And when I came home, my daughter was very young. From what she said, I understood something has happened in Malaya Hospital. So I asked her, you be at home. I went to Malaya Hospital. I went and saw him. He was conscious. His femur bone was broken. And there are 2 bones, if it breaks, you can get what is called fat embolism. Basically, the marrow, bone marrow, like a pump, it will pump that bone marrow into lungs and brain and kidney. It's called embolism, fat embolism. Apparently he had fat embolism, which he didn't know. I saw him at 8 o'clock. I went there. I said, you see, you have gone through this mess. Now can't do anything about it. Maybe 3 months, 6 months. What do we do? You just endure it. I told like that. I told my wife, you go home. Everything I thought was all right. Night 1 o'clock, the doctor called and I think this fat embolism has happened to him. So very serious, because lots of fat has gone into the lungs and the brain, which is very fatal. It's just a matter of a few hours, half an hour or 1 hour or something. So at night 1 o'clock, I realized there is something serious which has happened. So they said we have to take a CT scan. I said go ahead. They couldn't take CT scan because from ventilator they couldn't take him even for a minute or something. Morning 5:30, the doctor calls me. The duty doctor calls me. He said, who are you? I said, I am his uncle, I am his guardian. He said, this fellow will die in about 15 minutes or 20 minutes maximum. So whomever you want to call, you call. So he said, about maybe half an hour, he will not survive beyond that because this is messed up, completely messed up. You please tell me at morning 5:30, should I use my rational brain or should I use my intuitive brain? If I had used my, God has been kind to me. If I had used my rational brain, I would have been in another ventilator actually. Because if this mind, this rational brain is very bad, I am telling you. I would have really worked hyper on my brain. I am already hypertensive, so I would have gone another complication and I would have been in the next, you may think it is very old fashioned, but I won't hesitate to say, I told at morning 5:30, I told if this fellow has to survive, I just sat in meditation for about half an hour. I told if he has survived, please, make him alive. If he dies, let him die. But you do one thing, give us courage to take whatever we need to take. I just prayed and left it. I said, if this fellow survived, I'll bring him to your temple. This may look very old-fashioned, but I can tell you, I don't think we should have a crisis in life. But I am telling you, if there is crisis in life, have Shraddha. Don't bring your rational brain. 42 days he was in the ventilator. On 27th day, the doctor said his white blood corpuscles is 1,800. You should have 18,000. If anything goes below 4,000, 4 hours he will die. So on 27th day, his WBC count came to 18,800. He said, can you get 3 bottles of it? I got 3 IAB students, they came and all that. On 45th day, the doctor actually called me and said, Prof. Mahadevan, I want to ask you something. Normally, people will just pounce on us by the minute. Take the hell out of us. Because of real tension, na? He said, why did you not? In fact, 10th day the nurse said, sir, they are thinking you are disinterested. No, he never understood that angle. He said, looks like they think you are not that interested in this boy and so on, so go and talk to them. Our thing was, we said, in fact I told all my family members there are only 3 things. I find the processes are very good. They have some German machine, wonderful machines where I could, first day I went and they showed me all that. Second, I found the doctors are very genuine. Right? Third thing I said, I believe in God. That's the end of it. I said, my sister and brother, I said, don't jump up and down. Take what it comes. God has been kind after. So I told the same thing to the doctor. I asked doctor, why did you not do it? I said, sir, I saw your processes. Machines and processes were very good. I found you people are really fighting. I could see it. You can make it. That time he said, sir, he is 22-year-old, sir. If he is 70 years old, we would not have put this much effort. He is 22-year-old. We would never leave. We also know in profession where to put. And they replied like that. Third, I said, we believe in God. What I am saying, this is very important in life. This is an extreme case. You can do it. Tomorrow you don't get a promotion. Please put everything in the lotus feet of God. Life is better for you. Otherwise you will not sleep. You will get another ventilator for you. I am seriously telling. That is called Shraddha. That is the way the buddhi must work. This is not old style thinking. It's a great leveler in life. When you face small crisis, big crisis, please hide behind Shraddha. It will give you enormous courage to face the reality. It will definitely give you courage to face the reality. I can tell you 2 experiences in the last 10 years, very bad experiences. This boy actually survived. We lost 1 girl. Just in front of us, the school van ran over the child. Myself and the girl's mother saw it. Finished. It happened in one school 2 kilometers from here called St. Paul's. My brother's daughter was run away. Run over by the van. Died. 6-year-old. So we have been able to handle all these in life. Because we can't say God is bad. I did chapter 6, I will talk about it. When you talk about meditation, I talk about what we do normally in life, which we should not be doing. You can't throw your weight all over the place and say, I don't believe in God. God has been very unkind to me. I did that. This is what we do in life. We have to make a larger sense of life, and if we have to make a larger sense of life, we need what is called Shraddha. To me, Shraddha is a positive frame of mind. Shraddha is truly a positive frame of mind. It is not a very weak idea. It's a very strong idea. It gives you positive understanding of every happening that is there around you in life. It's called positive frame of mind, according to me. That's what Shraddha is. Because now that you look at Thomas Alva Edison, 220 failures. Why did he go for 220? That is called Shraddha. He believed something is going to happen. With rational brain, he could have given up long back. How can you wait for 220 failures? That is what a rational brain will do. Whereas an intuitive brain and a faith will give you much larger energy to go a much longer marathon in life. If you want to have a marathon of life experience, have Shraddha. Great scientists are endowed with Shraddha. That is my reading of scientists and Nobel laureates. They don't even know what are they going to get out of it. They keep on trying and trying and trying, and then after everything comes, we can write articles and interviews and all that. I am bothered about the previous part, not after the result. Look at the process. Process is nothing but Shraddha. True great discoveries and knowledge. That's what Krishna says, Shraddhavan labate jnanam. That is the meaning of Shraddhavan labate jnanam. Right? It's a raw material for developing capacity to face nonsense. Please understand, we will have nonsense in life. Don't ask, I will not have nonsense in life. You are very childish. Please don't ask that. Don't think I am a sadist. I am telling you reality. Don't ask that only good things can happen to me in life. Never ask that. On the other hand, give me the courage to take anything that comes. You are asking a much better thing. If you pray, please ask, please give me something with which I can handle anything that comes in my way. Don't pray, I want only good thing. That means you are actually heading yourself into a very serious problem. And don't take me wrong, I am not a sadist. I am saying you have to understand. That's a true spirituality we should understand. Shraddha will help you do that. Because in contrast to that, this is my understanding of Shraddha today in the society. It says it's a very narrow and old style concept. This is what generally people are told, and we are groomed like that to a large extent. And you question anything and everything, that's the way to make progress. Right? Start with an unshakable faith on the idea that all old knowledge is. So there is a Shraddha here. You need Shraddha even to kill Shraddha. You need an unshakable faith, anything old is bad. That's called Shraddha. Shraddha may be misapplied or applied in a different, which is alright. I don't have a problem with that. To say that I have an unshakable faith on the idea that all old knowledge is unscientific is a shining example of Shraddha for me. Otherwise, how do I define Shraddha? This is what is Shraddha according to me. Misapplied in our own way. And have faith in my. Without faith, nothing is possible. Please, I can endlessly talk about this. Is a very important subject for me. If you have a heart problem, if you go to a cardiologist, he says you have to have angiogram or angioplasty. Please have faith. Don't use your rational brain. I mean, you can ask one more person if you want. But without faith, you can't work even an hour. In fact, you don't even know who is your mother. I mean, you can DNA testing and all you can do. Take things on faith. You don't know when you are born. In fact, how many of you when you were born? None of us know. We go only by faith. That don't have too much. I mean, birth certificate and all, I don't believe. You could have written anything today with money. You can do anything. Tell me what you can believe on. You believe on nothing. So best thing is believe on something which is larger and grand. Without faith, in fact, nothing. This famous story which I keep uttering at times. One fellow went to a village, and two of them went. He said, "Let's jump into there's a nice pond. Let us have some swimming and all that." One villager came and said, "Don't do it here. There are big crocodiles there. Better have faith. Listen to him and go. Because if you jump, you will prove your point posthumously." Life is full of faith. Don't think faith is a bad idea. Faith is a great idea. The day we give up faith, we are alone and our life will be hugely challenged. Please reflect on this idea. I am not giving a sermon here, but please reflect on this idea. Faith is very, very important in life. Otherwise, we will be very challenged at every moment in life.
I think one thing that a lot of us find confusing when it comes to faith is about whom to put faith on. Like, if it's about a supreme concept, I think that's a no-brainer. But then when it comes to, let's say, even pundits or even authority figures or even scholars, there is I mean, we've all been also forewarned by people who've been bitten, burnt by putting faith on someone who's misguided them. So, I mean, actually, it makes sense with God.
No.
It
So faith is very valuable because by burning and burning, you have actually cleaned. You have become wiser in life. You have now figured out whom to put faith also.
No, what if someone else was being burnt and now put that fear into me? Like, well-wishers, parents and others. And they say, no, don't believe in all these pundits. No, don't believe in the priests. So whatever. Then where do you go from there?
Yeah. Actually, there is one, this thing called Nyaya. In Tarka Shastra, this Nyaya is very, very important. There are two masterpieces called Nyaya and Vaisheshika. Okay. In Nyaya, the first shloka says there are only 16 ways you can get knowledge. You should actually, if not the whole, so the entire thesis is only expanding that first shloka. So, faith, whom should you put faith? That 16 parameters are there. Because knowledge and faith are so related to one another. Nyaya has 16. One of them is you should put faith on a learned person. That is why when the cardiologist said that something is going, in fact nobody has seen the heart. Cardiologist also, when your tears open, you might have seen my heart. He also works with the instruments and so on. So one of the important things, so listening to parents is a very important thing.
But then if parents say don't put faith on any guru, because gurus are all, I mean, just a real example. My parents don't follow any guru. But so for me, there's only God.
No. So I mean, we have to actually talk in a little more detail. But that is a different way to handle actually.
That's putting faith on parents, right?
Huh? Anyway.
Having faith on something that is infallible, somebody, I mean, like when you say having faith on somebody, they should have some characteristics, right? That is unique.
No, let me put it like this. Faith is not putting on somebody. Faith is, that's why I said, is astikya. Means, faith is, there is a larger principle which I should believe in. Now, if I put faith on him, do you know what is the expression of that? I see that energy flowing here. The thread is only one, actually. That's why, it has been spoken in a great detail. Faith is a simple idea. Faith is there is a larger principle which is behind everything happening here. That's the meaning of faith. Now, that expresses in many ways. If I put faith on a cardiologist, I see God. You look at Narayana Hridayala website, you go, download those videos and see. Every one of them are saying Devi Shetty is God. They are 100% right. They put faith because they see that connection. So, wherever you are able to see connection, you will put faith. If the connection gets short-circuited, that will go. The principle has not changed. The principle is faith means you think there is only one larger force which is what I should believe in. Now you may see the larger force in many ways. Some of them may be right, some of them may not be right, some of them may appear to be right today but not tomorrow. Because all these, that's a process in which will strengthen this idea. So these ups and downs will be there, these disappointments will be there, that's a process. This idea can never go wrong. It's this process which will clean us up and gets us to that. That's the idea.
But faith will it not hinder your path of evolution? I have, as you said, faith, there is a larger reality in life.
Yeah, faith. No, faith does not mean you lie low. They are not related to each other. Your pariprashna is a desire to know knowledge. Faith is your ability to handle things that happens. Even in this questioning process, whatever knowledge you get, with faith only you will be able to handle. Faith is a very fundamental requirement to handle. That's why I said it's a leveler in life.
So maybe it is similar to, for example, suppose you are struggling with something and somebody comes and helps you. You think, oh, God sent this person. But thank God sent you here to help me.
No. Day in and day out we will believe it. Daivam Manishya Rupena is not a fancy statement. When you are stuck in the middle of the road and then you are alone, you don't know what to do, somebody comes, you see nothing but God there. If you can't see God, you are very immature. That is called Shraddha, that is called Astikya. That's why that's why God will give you only in movies where some white smoke will come, something will tear, something will fall. Life is not like that. God will come through him, come through you, come through her. That is a wisdom. If you are not able to see it, you have not made your life. So you are right. That is the real meaning of. So the force, the concept will never change. The medium sometimes works very well, sometimes doesn't work well. That's why we have this difficulty. Anyway, we'll end this chapter with this shloka. With all knowledge and some great stuff which he talked about, all action leads knowledge and all that. Finally, he made one statement, Krishna, in this chapter. He said, Tasmat, therefore, Ajnana Sambhutam Hristam Jnana Asinatmanaha Chitva Enam Samshayam Yogamatishto Bharata. He says, use the sword of knowledge. Asi is sword. Churika, no? It's called Asi. So, Jnana Asina, use the sword of knowledge. Chitva, cut it. Enam Samshayam, this doubt. Actually, our challenges in life are all expressions of doubt. At one level, that's the fundamental meaning. We doubt the astikya. That's why all these happens. So you try to, and all these doubts are coming because of ajnana. The true knowledge has not spotted in you. That's why you doubt, you think you have to solve everything, you will have to solve your problem. All these are different variations of that. So all that which are all in your heart, in your thinking process, which are all coming through ajnana, all those doubts, cut it with the sword of knowledge, and then he says, get back to work. Uttishto, atishto, atishto, yogam, karma yoga, get to work. Because work will give you knowledge, work will take you to ultimate knowledge, so you will gain. That's why in chapter 3 when I talked about, I said, only way you can progress in life is to work. That's why he says, karmanasya, na karmanasya anarambat, naish karmam purushaha ashnute. There is a 4th or 5th shloka in chapter 3. At that time I talked about it. Nobody can attain perfection without working. That's why Krishna said there is no room for no work. That's why he says all these, and then finally he says, yogo atishto tishta. Get on to this yoga. Right? We said this, moment he said this, anyway, these are the things on knowledge that you found. In this chapter is full of knowledge. Bhavaha jnana tapasa puta madbhavam agataha, 10 shloka. Jnana agni dattaha tamago pandidam budaha, 19 shloka, so many of them. Right? So there are many ideas about knowledge, which are all part of it in these shlokas. I have just tried to put it. But then, moment he said this, with this chapter 4 ended. Okay? Om Tassaditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Sambade Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yogo Nama Chaturthodhyaya. So what he is saying is, do work, acquire knowledge. As you do work, you will evolve, this knowledge will slowly flourish in you, and then you will reach that stage of sannyas. That's why it's called Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Now after he did all that, Arjuna jumped back with a real star mark question. We'll see that question alone today, and then we will continue. Because it's a very important, again every chapter is important. This chapter brings a very important message for all of us, because we have certain questions in our mind. Anyway, so this chapter has 3 major components. It's a slightly smaller chapter, 24 shlokas, 29 shlokas. The first is about what is sannyasa, because Arjuna is now saying, no, I will now run away again. He again comes back to that mood. What he asked in chapter 3, he asks the same question again. So Arjuna asks a question, and Krishna actually, it's a beautiful reply. It's a deep idea which we have to understand actually. And then he insists, work. Through work you will become realized soul. Work and work. Through work you will become realized soul, that he says. And for such a person who really worked his way to perfection, how that person, he or she will look like, is how broadly these 3 blocks in this chapter. We'll see the question alone, because there are some nice things to think about from that question. So the chapter started with a question. Just like chapter 3 started with a question, chapter 5 also started with a question. He said, Sannyasam karmanam Krishna, punaha yogam cha shamsasi, yat shreyaha, etayoho ekam, tanme bruhi sunischitam. He said in chapter 3 you talked karma yoga. Chapter 4 you talked, everything finally is knowledge. Everything finally goes knowledge. Knowledge will only, that's a boat with which you can cross everything. Knowledge is the ultimate. He talked so high about knowledge in chapter 4. So Arjuna came back and said, you said sannyasa, jnana will really take you everywhere and so on. Then you also talked about karma. Karmanam sannyasam. He said all work will lead to knowledge. Knowledge will liberate you. You said all that. Very nicely you said all that. Then you are also yogo atishto tishta bharata. You are ending the chapter with again go to yoga. Punar yogam cha shamsasi. Which is shreyas, not preyas. See, there is good and there is pleasant. Good need not be pleasant, pleasant need not be good. There is something called shreyas and preyas. Preyas is, pleasant. It may lead to goodness, sometimes may not. Whereas Shreyas is, for sure, it will take you to a much higher plane. That's a limited meaning of, approximate meaning of Shreyas. So tell me which is Shreyas, Etayoho, between the two. Ekam bruhi, sunischitam. You are again confusing. You are by wavering back and forth. You think clearly and tell me one. Same thing he said in chapter 3 also. If you remember, in chapter 3 he said, Vyamishrena vakyena, you confuse me, you mixed up. Buddhi mohe simem, you are deluding my buddhi. Right? Tadi ekam vada nischitya, yena shreyaha aham apnuyam. Same question he asked. Here also he is asking, because the reason is, just think about this issue. He says, if knowledge is what ultimately you need, and he says, give up work, let's go straight. You can leapfrog, na? You can cut all these and go straight there. That's the question he is asking. He is saying, you are saying knowledge is what you need ultimately. If knowledge is what is ultimately required, let's go there. Why are you telling me yogo atishto tishta bharata? Why are you telling me do work now? Because so much you said in the last 20 shlokas, 30, whole of chapter 4, you put knowledge in such a high pedestal. You said after knowledge you will get liberated, all sarva karma kilam partha jnane parisamapyate and all that. In that case, let me go to knowledge straight away. Why are you asking me to actually do this? This is the question. Now, other words, question is asking is, this sannyasa and, we have a certain mental model about sannyasa. Sannyasa means, at least in the Hindu scheme, in our Sanatana scheme, sannyasa means you give up everything, give up all your obligatory requirements. That's why you don't have family, you don't have nothing. No, nothing. That is called sannyasa. And then you are saying if you go to sannyasa, you will actually liberate also. That seems to be a real royal path. And you are now asking me to get it. This is all trouble, which is what we are all talking again and again. I do some work, it affects me. Somebody does something, it affects me. I get very challenged, I get agitated. Raga, dvesha, shadvarga are all creating problem for me. Why all this is full of bush and thorn and so on, and there is a 4-lane highway here. Why are you asking me here to go here? So why can't we take sannyasa? That seems very interesting. This is the deepest question that he asked, for which Krishna gives some 3-4 shlokas in which he actually replies. If you read the reply, it gives a feeling, it is like asking, do I enroll for a PhD program in a university or get a PhD degree? I don't see a question here. If you have to get a PhD, you enroll for a PhD program. Without enrolling for a PhD program, how do you get PhD? Right? So that is the message he actually pushes, something like that. And this clarifies a lot of things. Sri Bhagavan Vacha Sannyasah Karma Yogascha Nishreyasah Karava Ubau Tayostu Karma Sannyasat Karma Yogo Visishyate. Arjuna, I will tell you one thing. Both karma and sannyasa, both will give you result. Both will give you the same result. However, he says, both Nishreyasaha Karau Ubau. Both are capable of giving you the shreyas that you are asking. This is how he replies. He very intelligently replies to him. Right? Then he says, Tayostu, amongst the two, karma sannyasat karma yogaha visishyate. Rather than giving up work, doing work is good. This is how he replied. So very clearly, while he talked about sannyasa, he talked about karma sannyasa and karma yoga. When Arjuna asked a question, he said, for you, go and do work. Both will lead to the same result, but for you, let me tell you, I will suggest this. In fact, a vast majority of godmen, right? See, sannyasa has, in today's scheme of things, it has been there even earlier also. I mean, this is not things which happened today. 2000 years back also the same thing was happening, 5000. This is all natural to humankind. Some people think sannyasa is a lifestyle, which means there's a color of a dress. Now people will come and then take care of you, give you all, and then in movies also they are portraying it in a very different ways, all kinds of things. The point is, sannyasa is actually a destination, not a process. You have to reach. Sannyasa is a state of mind, not a lifestyle. If people don't understand, there's a lot of people who don't understand. It's always like that. People who don't understand that sannyasa is actually a destination and not a lifestyle, and they jump into sannyasa, they will actually destroy their bhaktitva. They will get into everything that they could have been better off doing in their grihastha ashrama, in the normal life. They get in here. A number of sannyasis are like that. So they are all imperfect attempts made at a concept which they have not understood. Krishna is not talking that level. Krishna is talking at a level where he says sannyasa is a state of mind. Actually, there are any number of them in this country. You can be in the thick of your work and you can be a sannyasi. You can be a realized soul when you are in the thick of. He is painting a very different meaning of sannyasa, whereas in common parlance, our understanding of sannyasa is very contrary. So to say, when Krishna says sannyasa is the ultimate and then it gives you liberation, our mental model immediately takes us to a situation where there is a color of a dress, there is a particular credibility that these are all external things. It may sometimes help to ward off a little bit of a problem, but that's not where sannyasa is. There is one Ramana Gita. There's one Kavya Ganta Muni who wrote actually about Ramana Gita, 18 chapters he wrote. There is a very nice shloka there. He says, sannyasa is neither mundanam nor kashayam. He says it's not answering head or wearing a particular color of a dress. That's not sannyasa. So, what Krishna is introducing in sannyasa is, you and I can become a sannyasi by working in a company. You read Paramahamsa Yogananda's autobiography, you will get that message. He says, my father was working for Englishmen, but he was a sannyasi. Perfect sannyasi. And there are any number of people who have been in the thick of their life, but they will be a realized soul. They will get that eternal bliss. So getting that eternal bliss is actually a state of mind and a process, rather than people think sannyasa means there is another profession, another way of doing things. Whereas Krishna actually puts a much larger idea, because this is very useful for all of us. Because I want to tell every one of us here, more and more spirituality doesn't mean that you will become less interested in life. Not at all. Whatever little spirituality I have acquired, I have become more interested in what I do. But with an epsilon of detachment, I could get into what I do. So, the idea in Bhagavad Gita is not to run away. The idea in Bhagavad Gita is not to give up work. I think we can evolve through work and become a perfect human being. We can become a realized soul through work. That's a winning combination, which is what this chapter is going to talk about, which we will see in the next class. 24.